Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday, and we are moving to the next position of, I would call it dire need for the Seattle Seahawks. I would call it dire need that the Seahawks add some linebackers, inside linebackers, off-ball linebackers, some people call them, whatever you want to call them, we need them. As of right now, I think we've got one guy on the roster that is an inside linebacker, and he's not even really an inside linebacker. It's Nick Bellore, right? Nick Bellore, he can do it. He's done it a little bit before, but he's a special teamer slash fullback slash linebacker slash comedian. That's really, really thin. Bobby Wagner, free agent. Jordan Brooks, free agent. Devin Bush, free agent. Technically, Patrick O'Connell and Joshua Onujiogu are exclusive rights. So they're not on the team as of the new league year. So we're going to have to figure this out. And the odds are very good we're going to have to attack free agency to address this. And obviously, I anticipate we're going to bring back one of our starters last year, either Wagner or Brooks, depending on how McDonald feels about those two players. But it's not going to be enough. We are supposedly going to be running Mike McDonald's 3-4 defense. And in a 3-4 defense, you have two inside linebackers starting out there. By the way, even if you run a 4-3, the will linebacker occupies a somewhat similar role. So either way, you're going to need help there. And the Seahawks might look to free agency to fill their needs. They're probably going to look at both free agency and the draft. But how are they going to attack this position? Because off-ball linebacker has become devalued in recent years. It has. A lot of people look at off-ball linebacker the same way they look at like running back, or a lot of teams the way they look at safety. It's like you don't want to make a big investment there unless you're getting a future Hall of Famer, because the impact you have on the game is not what it used to be. However, there are some players you might make an exception for, and there are some teams, some staffs that might feel like, no, we don't agree with that. We feel like the inside linebacker position is extremely important, and we're going to take it seriously. So we're going to start off our look at inside linebackers by evaluating a group of players who are free agents in the upcoming free agency period that will probably get more than $10 million a year in their next contract. There are a few of these guys, and we're going to try to judge their fit with the Seahawks. So the first guy, this one's obvious. This one's the one that everyone's going to be talking about. This is the one that everyone's been buzzing about ever since we inked Mike McDonald. It's Patrick Queen. So Patrick Queen, drafted right after Jordan Brooks several years ago. First-round pick, big-time player at LSU. Has had a pretty good career in Baltimore in terms of the bulk stats, but he didn't really start getting attention as like an elite player until the last 2 years, I feel like. Last 2 years have been transformative for Patrick Queen. He's become a really excellent all-around player. He's improved his pass rushing production. He's improved his production in the run game. He's become a really good all-around player for the Ravens over the last 2 years since McDonald became the DC. The years before that, it's a little bit tougher. Like, the numbers are there, the stats are there, sure, but is the impact there? If you go to PFF, they paint a very clear picture. They're pretty complimentary of what he did in 2023. They like what he did in 2022. They think he was a good player, but you go back further than that, they think he was inept. They think he basically can't even stand without tripping over his own 2 feet. You go back to 2020, his rookie year, and they basically think he's, I don't know, they basically think he's like a toddler out there. Look at these grades. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how this is a thing, but they hated him. And I don't know, I'm not saying I agree with their evaluation completely and wholeheartedly, but what I am saying is that this was a guy who was headed one way, and then year 3 on, seems like the worm turned. So you are getting a very good player here. He's played in every game in his career. He has not missed a single game for any reason in his career. Last 2 seasons, he has 12 passes defense, so he's making plays in coverage. Last year, he made All-Pro, second team, and the Pro Bowl. His coverage numbers have been workable. Last year was actually solid with less than 400 yards allowed, 2 touchdowns, and I think he had he had the 1 interception. So the coverage has been pretty decent the last 2 seasons, better than Wagner for sure. On the level with what Brooks did last year, obviously a lot better than what Brooks had done statistically in years before. So it makes sense why there would be interest here, why Mike Macdonald might want to bring his boy over from Baltimore. Now, you're going to pay a lot. I believe this projection was from before the cap went up. So you might throw this out and say 20 million. Patrick Queen might be getting 5 years, 100 million. And if I'm right about the Jordan Brooks projection, which would you rather have? That's the question we need to ask. Because if I'm right about Jordan Brooks and he would take like 4 years for 52 million, but Patrick Queen would take 5 years, 100 million, or even if Jordan Brooks would take like 56 million over 4 years, what would you rather do? Like, Patrick Queen is probably a better player because he's, had better seasons. The last 2 seasons he's had have been really, really impressive. Like I said, he's made all-pro second team last year. That's not just a popularity contest. That is voted on by people who are supposed to be really paying attention to this stuff. So that means something to me. It's not like just, oh, he has a lot of tackles, let's put him in the Pro Bowl. No. This is a player who has earned his credit as one of the best linebackers in the league. But would you be willing to pay $6 to $7 million more a year for Queen over Brooks? Because honestly, it really feels like we're going to get one or the other. All right, so let's move off of Queen for now. That's an interesting one. That's a tough one. Next guy I want to look at in this evaluation would be Frankie Luvu of the Carolina Panthers. He's just recently turned 27, so he's entering his physical prime, and he's primed to make a big payday from Carolina. So this is a guy who's kind of come out of nowhere, but we do have a little bit of familiarity with him because he played for the Cougars in college. But he was not drafted, and he slowly worked his way into the NFL as a member of the Jets, and then went to the Panthers, and then for the last 2 years, he's just been a monster. He's been all over the place. He's done a lot as a pass rusher. He's been a very productive pass rusher as a off-ball linebacker. He's racked up the tackle stats. He's been part of some defenses that have been, statistically, they're not great, right? Nothing about that Carolina team has been great lately, but that Carolina defense has done about as good as they can given how bad the offense has been. The coverage numbers have actually been really solid for the most part, allowed less than 300 yards on average over the last 2 seasons. Actually, I think it's slightly above 300. But he's been relatively durable. He's only missed 2 games over the last 2 years. So there's a lot to like here when you're taking a look at a guy like Frankie Luvu. He's got pretty good size. He's got a good amount of athleticism. There is some limitation there. He is a guy who was undrafted. There's a reason why he was undrafted. But he's been a really good all-around player. I think the thing that really stands out here positively would be his abilities as a blitzer. That strikes me as something that could be very good and very useful in this defense. PFF really liked what he did in 2023, even more than they liked what Queen did. They really liked what he did in 2022 as well. So over the last couple years, this guy has been great. So with all this being said, what would you be willing to throw his way financially? Spotrac does have a projection here of 4 years, 45 million. Again, I think that after the cap went up, maybe it's going to be more like 4 for 50, but it's going to be in this rough area probably. I think this makes sense. I think this is going to happen. He doesn't have the pedigree and the extended history of great success to earn the way that Patrick Queen is going to earn. He doesn't have the notoriety from being part of some super prolific defense that Patrick Queen has. But I do think he's going to get something like 4 years, 48. So 4 years, 48. Would you rather do that? Or would you rather give a little more money to Jordan Brooks, who I would say is probably more talented than Luvu because he's a little bit bigger and a little more athletic. But as a player, we just haven't really seen that manifest into better results yet. Like, Luvu's a better player as near as we can tell. So, would you rather do that, or would you rather throw the big check at Patrick Queen? Like I said, probably going to be close to 20 million a year. So, that's interesting. I feel like Luvu's probably the best option here, personally. If we are going to go this route and spend big on an inside linebacker, which is not my preference, but we might have to do it. I kind of feel like Luvu is probably the way to go here. And again, I'm not going to pretend like I completely love it because there are physical limitations here, and he might be benefiting from playing in front of a guy like a Derek Brown, who's been a really nice space eater for the Panthers over the past couple years. And I'm aware of the fact that he's probably hit his ceiling pretty hard. Like Jordan Brooks probably hasn't hit his ceiling like this. So to me, Frankie Luvu is probably the best option for the price, but I'm still wary. Last guy we're going to take a look at in this little video series will be this video, first video in an extended series, Devin White. Devin White coming from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, poised to make significant money, just turned 26, so he should be hitting his prime over the next few years. And Devin White's been on a little bit of an interesting journey as a player. He was the former number 5 overall pick, so supremely talented dude coming out in 2019. Made the Pro Bowl for that Tampa Bay team that, well, no, that was the team that didn't win the Super Bowl. That was the team that actually made a run in the playoffs, but ultimately fell short of the Super Bowl. He was part of that Buccaneers team that did win the Super Bowl with Brady. That was the year he made second team All-Pro with 140 tackles and 9 sacks. So he's an excellent blitzer. He was constantly around the ball. He's constantly making plays on the football. So this is a good player. Now, he's been on a little bit of, like I said, a bumpy ride over these last couple of years. You take a look at 2023, for example, you notice he missed a few games. Part of the reason why he did is because he actually got benched. They weren't really liking what he did very much, and they were like, okay, we're pulling the plug here for a little bit. He did come back, and he did continue to play eventually, but you take a look at this 2023, and there are some questions here. There's some real concern about whether or not this Devin White guy can still be part of an elite defense, can still be an elite linebacker. PFF hated him in 2023, and straight up, I'll just tell you, PFF has not been too positive on this guy at all. There's something they really don't like about Devin White, which is kind of weird. He's been part of some good defenses. He puts up good numbers. He's a really good blitzer. 23 sacks in 5 years. Really, really good. He's out on the field pretty much constantly. So, Devin White, there's just something here that the film evaluators, and again, I want to stress this, PFF misses on stuff all the time. Just because PFF said it doesn't mean it's true, but I look at something like this and I go, okay, I want to seek to understand why. And then I look at something like PFR's coverage numbers and I see he gave up a ton in coverage back in 2020 and 2021. Those were supposed to be his good years, right? And the last 2 years, it's gotten a little bit better, maybe, or at least a little bit less impactful. But I'm like, okay, if this is a linebacker I'm going to be throwing a lot of money at, I'd like him to be a little bit less of a coverage liability. These numbers to me smack of coverage liability. That Tampa Bay team that won the Super Bowl, he gave up 626 yards in 15 games. That's right on the level of Jordan Brooks. That might be worse than anything Jordan Brooks has ever done. That's very close. And again, this PFF thing, it's at least a warning flag, right? It's not the end-all be-all at all, but they really don't think he's a good run defender at all. And by the way, Spotrac does have a contract. Now, this is a shorter-term deal, so that's nice, but 2 years, $21.5 million. Maybe now it's going to be like $22 million, so you're looking at like $11 million a year. That's only slightly less than Luvu. Wouldn't you rather have Luvu? It's very close to the same amount of money. I know the short-term thing might be appealing, but then again, maybe it's not. Maybe you wouldn't mind locking yourself up to Luvu for the next 4 years. So, Devin White, there's some real red flags here. What do you guys think? I don't know. This one's tough. I'm going to have to dig into this one a little bit more maybe, but that's how I'm viewing that one. More videos coming later today with more linebackers. See you guys later. Go Hawks.